This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What is going on, everybody? Tuesday afternoon. Let's get after it here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Big show today. Lots to talk about. News from the CFL, the National Football League, hockey, international hockey. And we're also going to have some hockey talk with Brian Munz. Munzy's back getting ready for his first season running the communications and being the broadcast voice of the Winnipeg Ice. Training camps begin tomorrow for the Ice. We'll check in with Munzy and also get his thoughts on a very interesting Winnipeg Jets off-season. Lots of football to get to. News from around the Canadian Football League, and the countdown to Labor Day is on. Justin Dunk of 3 Down Nation will pop on a little later on as well. Great to see everybody that's with us live on YouTube, and welcome to everybody listening on the podcast. For you podcast listeners, make sure you stay tuned. Next week, we will be doing a contest for a great prize from our friends with Canadian Club heading into the Banjo Bowl. We'll be utilizing many of our social media channels for that. If you're not already following us on socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the handle is at Sports Talk WPG. And if you haven't checked out the show on YouTube, do that sometime. You can join us live from 1 till 3. You can always go back at any point and listen and watch the Winnipeg Sports Daily on the YouTube broadcast. As always, a big thanks to our family of sponsors making Winnipeg Sports Talk happen on a daily basis, and that is Canadian Club, the best whiskey around, Royal Sports, Nick and Nikki DQ Group, Not Autocorp, Boston Pizza. They're ready for Burger Week. We'll tell you about that a little later on. Assiniboia Downs, Breezy Bend, Little Brown Jug Brewing, and Coolbet Canada. Let's get to it and welcome in Michael Remis to the program. Remo, getting nice outside, got the sun shining, and lots to talk about today. What's up?
Yeah, I'm scrounging for stuff here. August 31 today, and I've got a number of great topics on the go, including the top. I were looking through the topics, and I'm like, yes, the Dallas Stars are changing the shade of green on their jersey from a dark green to a lighter green. So that's kind of where we're at here. But in all seriousness, we do have some good topics. Canada, USA tonight, CFL. You know, Mark Leggio named top performer of the week. There is definitely some stuff to get to, but we did have some fun before the show, laughing about that.
We did. A final day of August, and for September, Labor Day weekend is coming up. A huge weekend for the Canadian Football League. Bombers and Riders going at it in Regina. I know many of you will be making the pilgrimage west on Highway 1 to Regina for the weekend. I'm somewhat envious. As of right now, I'm not going. But stranger things have happened. Maybe you will see me on the weekend out in Regina. Not sure right now, but really looking forward to this game and all the slated games coming up. But let's start on the hockey. And you mentioned there's a lot of international hockey to talk about with the upcoming Olympics. But tonight, one game for all the marbles. Gold medal matchup between Canada and the USA, Reem. And, the U.S. has been dominating this tournament for, the last number of years. Canada sort of stepped up and played well at the Olympic Games. But the World Women's Hockey Championship has been, really owned by the Americans. And that is what made the Canada-USA matchup in the opening round so shocking, the way Canada absolutely beat the doors off the Yanks. It was a 5-0 at one point. It was 20-6 in shots in the second period. The Americans came back and certainly did make a push on it in the third period and made it a little bit more respectable. But I think Canada in some ways sort of called the dogs off. And to be honest, all I was thinking in the third period watching the game, you wonder how this game is going to affect the assumed gold medal matchup between these two clubs. And, tonight we're going to find out.
Yeah, and I think this is what we've been, kind of counting down for throughout the tournament. I mean, traditionally in women's hockey, whether it's Olympics or World Championships, it's been Canada-US, and we had that preview before. Great results for Canada, but, I mean, not a great result if you want to see, like, an entertaining, down-to-the-wire hockey game, as we've seen with these two teams in the past. So, hey, August 31st, Tuesday, I'll be firing up TSN and watching tonight, and hoping Canada can bring home a gold medal. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is one of the great rivalries in sports, Canada versus the United States, and in women's hockey in particular. And part of it is the fact that, these two teams have dominated women's hockey for a long time. Although it was the last World Women's Championship where Canada was stunned in the semifinal and did not make the final. So I think with the time off, I mean, you knew that every single woman in that tournament was just itching for the opportunity to get back out and play at the highest level in a best-on-best tournament, considering how things were canceled last year, and then just about canceled this year as well. We all remember we were on their way to Halifax when everything shut down, and there was some real question as to whether this tournament would actually happen this year. So credit to Hockey Canada and whoever was involved to make this happen, because these athletes deserve the opportunity to compete for a gold medal. And Canada, they are a slight favorite in this game tonight. We'll go over some of the lines for this and more a little bit later on when we get to our Coolbet daily lines. But that game will be tonight. 24 months in the making, and Canada and the USA, it doesn't get much better than that. And, in addition to what should be a phenomenal game between the Americans and Canadians in women's hockey tonight, Reem, we are getting word trickling out from people around the National Hockey League that I've hedged on this, and I've not wanted to get my hopes up, as I'm sure many of you are, but it does sound like we are getting close to an official agreement that the National Hockey Leaguers will be playing in the Beijing Olympics. And regardless of what you think about China and international politics and all that, we're a sports show, we're hockey fans. Everybody wants to see a best-on-best tournament at the Olympic Games, and it looks like we're going to have it.
Yeah, here's the tweet yesterday from John Shannon. Multiple sources confirm a decision for NHL players to appear in the Beijing Winter Games will come this week. No one is confirming, but I as understand it, if NHLers go, all players and traveling personnel will have to be fully vaccinated. Alan Walsh tweeted over the weekend, he hears the decision is imminent. I saw Emily Kaplan from ESPN tweeting this as well, and I kind of haven't been I agree with you. I haven't been getting my hopes up. I haven't even been thinking about the possibility of a best-on-best tournament, but seeing these tweets, seeing some stuff, other reports as well, it sounds like they're gonna figure out a way to make this work. And now I am salivating at a possibility of best-on-best. I'm salivating at games at very weird times. I said to you before the show, does that mean we're gonna have to get on at like 4 a.m. for a post-game recap or something? I'm not so sure, but I think a lot of possibilities. Because what are we gonna do during that month of February, anyways, when the time is off? Well, I guess they would redo the schedule. They have two made, but this is very exciting. So
you know what? Yeah, that's a great point. The league will be shut down. I mean, maybe we just essentially flip to Beijing time.
Yeah.
And, for those 2 or 3 weeks, we will be up all night, sleeping during the day, and the show, instead of being at 1 o'clock Central, will be at 1 in the morning. Anything's possible. I just laughed out because, Remis, in all honesty, the second we get the official green light that the NHLers are going, half of our content could be talking about who's on Team Canada for the next 3 months.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Canada Watch. What are the Team Canada power rankings? And I'm seeing a couple players, a couple guys putting out things, and I know we'll have a number of Winnipeg Jets going. Nikolai Ehlers for sure, Connor Hellebuyck.
Well, let's get to that right off the bat, because we were tweeting about it, we were talking about it yet on the weekend. We meant, and I actually kind of thought we talked about it yesterday, and then I realized we got so into the aftermath of the Bomber game and everything else coming out of the weekend, we really didn't touch on this. But as I tweeted on the weekend, a huge congratulations to Nikolai Ehlers and the Danes for qualifying for the Olympic Games. The first time in Denmark's history that they will be going to the biggest best-on-best tournament on the planet. And Ehlers was the man for his team. I'm just so happy for him. I mean, we've got to know him over the years here in Winnipeg and his time with the Winnipeg Jets. And it was pretty clear how proud he was to represent his country, knowing that they were a growing hockey nation, and he's one of the, if not at this point, maybe the greatest player that the country's ever produced. But to go in, beat their arch rivals, the Norwegians, to clinch a spot in the Olympic Games was a huge achievement for the country. And as we saw with the amount of goals and assists he had in the qualifying tournament, Nikolai Ehlers was leading the way. And listen, selfishly as a Winnipeg Jet fan, if you're thinking about winning the cup, maybe having your star players, especially ones that will be literally carrying a nation like Nikolai Ehlers will be in a lot of ways, no disrespect to the rest of the players on the team, maybe that's not a great thing for the long-term goals of the hockey club. But this is too big of an opportunity to pass up. And I think that he's going to be incredibly motivated to have his best season ever, not only for the Winnipeg Jets, but also to show what he and his teammates can do. So that was a great story coming out of the weekend, Reem. And, now, as I understand, you just were telling me beforehand, we have the Olympic groups released now that the qualifications are over.
Yeah, and here's Nikolai Ehlers. He did an interview with Winnipeg Jets website, Mitch Clinton, saying it was one of the best feelings he's ever had. And so yeah, now we have the Olympic groups, and here I can pull them up for hockey. I know Canada is in a group with U.S., Germany, and China. And
we'll get to the Chinese
and
team
we'll get
in a bit.
And I want to pull these up. Oh yeah, here they are. Group B is ROC, which is Russia, Czech, Switzerland, and Denmark, and then Finland, Sweden, Slovakia, and Latvia. And the interesting thing about this is what I've been reading. China doesn't quite have an Olympic caliber team. They automatically get in because they're the host country. They want to be part of it. But I saw some people speculate on Twitter, if China now, they've got a ways to go. If they played, the NHLers on Canada, it would be extremely embarrassing for the country. And it could be there. I've seen speculation out there that maybe China gets dropped. So I think that is something to watch. Or they relax some rules of eligibility so they can get some legitimate players who can play, because that would be rough to just have a game wasted in that.
I
don't
think the government of China and the Chinese would want to be embarrassed on a national stage the way they almost assuredly will be.
Yeah.
So whether that's, making way for another team to go in and play, I'm not sure. But the thought of the Chinese men's national team going up against Canada in a best on best Olympic tournament, maybe it would be a great opportunity for these players to go in and play. And that Canada would call the dogs off and, at a certain point, but it's just not what you want to see in an event like this. And, there can always be the argument that maybe you just need to have tighter qualifying and have more teams come in. But again, this is all part of hosting the Olympics. China didn't qualify. They're the host team. So potentially, you're right. I'm sure there will be a discussion on that, because as much as they'd love the opportunity to, help their program go forward with a spot in the Olympics, the potential of ridiculously lopsided games, completely uncompetitive matchups would probably be a bit of a cloud over the games. That being said, it'll be one game in the round robin. Well, we'll deal with that. Maybe we won't pay as close attention to what would the line be in a Canada-China Olympic hockey game.
So I'm reading Stephen Ellis of the Hockey News. He's on Twitter. He was saying, yeah, China is 32nd ranked team right now, Division 2A, the fourth top tournament. 20 against Canada, 20 goals at least. At least. So it would be really, I don't think you would offer a line on that, Huss, just because it would be something you've never experienced in your life. So, and you'd also have to factor Canada probably have to go at quarter speed, I would think.
That's one of those games they call it off the board. You can bet China money line plus 1 million, and that's the only thing available, basically. Yeah, you can put $1 and win $1 million, and you'll just be losing your dollar. Hey, just got a tweet there from our pal Larry Eloy, who's often with us here on YouTube. Just picked up one of our last couple hats over at Royal Sports. He said limited stock left. I think they might have one dad hat and a couple snaps left. And Remo, I know we had a friend of the show from Regina pick one up on the website right now. I imagine just a few left for out-of-towners as well.
Yes. I mean, if you're in Winnipeg, you can order on the website too. But yeah, there's one person pickups who've now shipped us to BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, everyone getting in on the Winnipeg Sports Talk new hat drop that is
and
almost
Indiana, Indiana as well. Former Winnipeg South Blues goaltender and a good pal, Jamie Morris, who ended up finishing with the Indianapolis Ice his hockey career and is down. Started a life down there. Said I got to get in on this too. So I know we sent a package out to Jamie as well.
True.
So wherever you're listening right now, you can get to winnipegsportstalk.com, click on the store. We certainly do have t-shirts, hoodies. Those aren't going anywhere, but it was a very limited run of the new era hats. We do have a few snapbacks left and a few dad hats and a very limited stock down to the last couple apparently at Royal Sports. So anyways, we got the Olympic groups released. It sounds very, very optimistic that Canada and the NHLers will be going to the Olympics, and that is going to make such a fun year for us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. I mean, bottom line is, and we're going to talk to Brian Munz about this in a few minutes, the excitement around the Winnipeg Jets going into the season is as high as I can remember at any point in the 10 years, outside, of course, of the first year where the team came back. You've got a very exciting Ice team finally back in Winnipeg, being able to play some games, and we'll talk to Munzy about that. And then the prospect of, for the first time, I guess, since Vancouver, we're going to be getting the best on best going at it, Reem?
Sochi.
Oh, Sochi, of course.
Yeah, I forgot.
Was 2014.
I forgot about Sochi too, Huss. It was not a memorable turn. Even though Canada won handily, I don't know, they kind of just cruised through everyone. Although the USA game was pretty good. The semifinal versus the US, I remember very good. But the final had the cloud of the Nicholas Backstrom positive test, and he did not play in the final for Sweden. I don't know if you remember what that was all about.
Yeah, I do. Well, I also remember the USA game where Torts was the coach, right?
I forget.
I believe it was Torts. But anyways, they had Wheeler sitting on the bench for the better part of the first 50 minutes, and they put him out there, and he was the best player on the ice for the final 10 minutes. Now, maybe he was just that fresh, but I remember the final game against Sweden was an absolute dud, although it was a pretty fun environment getting to sports bars at 4 a.m. to get going for what was a very incredible victory for Canada and another win for gold. So listen, all of that will be a huge topic on the program going forward. We'll wait until official confirmation that NHLers are going to the Olympics before we get too excited. But certainly there is a lot to be hopeful for going forward. We're going to talk Winnipeg Ice. We're going to talk Jets off season. We'll even get Munzy's thoughts on Team Canada, and of course a huge women's game tonight when we get into hockey. Lots of football to come a little later on. Our guy Mark Leggio, one of the CFL performers of the week for week number 4 after his 4-for-4 performance in that big win against the Calgary Stampeders. Before we do that, speaking of the Blue Bombers, big thanks to Canadian Club for coming on board with Winnipeg Sports Talk. They are the official sponsor of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the official spirit. I saw plenty of CCs being poured at the game on Sunday night, along with the Northern Keep vodka, the Brugal rum, and of course the Jim Beam over at the Jim Beam Stillhouse. Don't forget, Bomber home games. We do I Love Rye packages. We'll do another marble race heading into the game on the weekend. And then next week, we have a very special prize. We'll be executing it through social media. So make sure to stay tuned to all of that. And if you want the great taste of CC, ginger ale, Pepsi, whatever your favorite is, pop by your local Manitoba liquor marts and pick it up. I was just mentioning Royal Sports. They are the hockey headquarters for Winnipeg and Manitoba. The season is just around the corner. So if you're getting ready or you got a hockey player in the family, place you need to go, and that is Royal Sports over at 750 Pembina Highway. While you're there, see if they've got any of the Winnipeg Sports Talk lids left. They're right there at the counter. And obviously, with NFL starting, NHL right around the corner, CFL season, there is simply no better place I've ever been to get licensed merchandise. It's all there. Check out the bikes in the back, check out the camping gear, and all the cool stuff on the King side as well. Next time you're over there at Royal Sports at 750 Pembina Highway. And by the way, they are hiring right now. If you've got, a teenager either that's into hockey or maybe thinking about working on the other side, they need a whole bunch of folks right now. So if you have someone looking for a part or full-time job, hit them up. Go into Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for all the details on that. And of course, I don't know, is our boy Nick in the house yet? And DQ Nick, it was great to see him at the game the other day. The great taste of DQ is available at all 4 Nick and Nicky locations. The DQ in Niverville, the DQ on Northgate, both of those have drive-thrus, as well as the DQ at Polo Park and the DQ St. Anne's. Pop by for an ultimate grill burger, a blizzard, maybe some take-home treats. And if you're thinking about having a party or going to one, be the hero. Get a DQ cake. Hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba. You can order in advance, pick it up quick, easy, in and out, and you will be the hero at the next party. Big thanks to Nick and Nicky for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Oh, right off the bat, Rob Mahoney. Thanks for the super chat, dude. Go Jets, go. Who's getting excited? Hands up. I am. I cannot wait for training camp to get going. But speaking of training camp of getting going, we don't have to wait for the Winnipeg Ice to get on the ice because our pal Brian Munz is in his new digs getting ready to start training camp tomorrow. Been a little while since we hooked up with Munzy. Great to have him back on Winnipeg Sports Talk. What's going on? I like the new digs. The office is looking sweet.
I've commandeered the Players Lounge for about 5 more days, and then they get to take the run of the roost. But I'll tell you what, I've been through, every NHL facility and the majority through the American League. I've been away from the Western League Huss, obviously, for the last 20 years almost. But what the Winnipeg Ice have here on a daily basis, this is better than some NHL rinks where they live each and every day. The players are pretty fortunate, and this is where they'll come in the morning. There's a PS4 station over there and a couple big screens, and they've got a big classroom in behind to get a bunch of their schoolwork done, and dressing rooms over there. Maybe I'll take you for a tour one day through the facility when we get through training camp. But it's been fun. It's been busy.
Well, it's great. You've had a wild summer. I mean, just before we get into all the hockey, tell us about the summer with Golf Manitoba. It was great following. All the great action. The bottom line is it was able to be played. There were some challenges, I'm sure, but just quickly fill us in on the summer and, what you were doing that led you into, of course, getting back into the hockey game this year with the Ice.
Yeah, you know what? And it continues right now. I'm not physically today out in Nipawa, but they're hosting the men's interclub, and then the women's interclub will go on Thursday, and that'll pretty much wrap up the competitive calendar for Golf Manitoba. But as you alluded to, it kind of went into it on a bit of a whim. The executive director, Jared Ladderbrook, and I just kind of sat down one day and said, hey, could this work for both parties? Could it work for Golf Manitoba, and could it work for me? And I'll tell you what, I've never had as much fun in a golf season. I think overall, touring throughout the province and the different championships we've had, I've been to 13 or 14 different courses, and a few that, I've lived in Winnipeg now. This will be my 16th year since we moved from Edmonton, my wife and I, and now obviously with our son. And I hit some golf courses up that I didn't even know existed that are within 90 minutes of greater Winnipeg here. And again, with COVID, we didn't get out to some of the further reaches throughout the province and into northwestern Manitoba, Ontario, pardon me. But it was cool. It was a lot of fun. And you know what it's like. The golf community is fantastic. Oh. Whatever course you belong to, or even for a public player, it's pretty special to have a chance to get out, play some golf, and tell some great golf stories.
Well, for sure. I mean, it brings communities together throughout the province, and especially at those events with the amount of area that we have. I mean, it's a special opportunity to compete in Manitoba Championships. And I got to tell you, I mean, Jared Ladderbrook, had the opportunity to work with him for a short period of time when I was over. We were both at the U of M at the same time. And heck of a player, a really good guy, and it's great to see what's happening with Golf Manitoba right now. And obviously, it's great to see you back on the mic, getting ready to do what you love. How excited are you to get back on the ice? And we'll talk about the ice in a minute, but I imagine the hockey season here. I know it's the 31st of August, a little earlier than the schedule you'd been accustomed to, but we got some hockey coming back, the Ice coming back to Winnipeg, and you being able to call games again nightly for Winnipeg hockey fans.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It takes me back to my roots. It takes me back to a lot of familiar people. Obviously, through all my time, like a lot of players have become coaches and they've moved on, and then they've come back to the Western League, or even some people who are still around from when I was there back in 2004, I guess, when I left the Prince Albert Raiders. So it is really neat to come full circle to get to see a lot of people that obviously I've been able to stay in touch with throughout my time in the American League and the NHL. And, the one thing that especially stands out over the last 10 years with the Jets, and, you were part of it, we talk about it daily, the young players coming up. Cole Perfetti is the perfect example, right? Like the excitement, the enthusiasm for those guys, getting a taste to see what it's like at the next level. Well, I get to see those guys all over again and, share some stories and maybe impart a little bit of wisdom. I don't know exactly how much is there, but I was told maybe I could help with that. But all in all, just to see how good and how talented some of these kids are that are 16 to 20 years old, I'm really excited about this year for sure. And then doing the other side of it too, right? The PR side of it. I learned a lot with Golf Manitoba this year, and being on the other side from the media, I think I got a pretty good idea as to what the media want, and we'll try and get the Winnipeg Ice a little bit more into the community, because it is almost a reboot. Like they only had the first year, and then we had COVID this year. So third season now here in the Manitoba capital, you'll see a lot of Winnipeg Ice players and coaches and management out and about in the community when it's safe to do so.
Well, I just think about how disappointed I was personally, and I know how many hockey fans were with what happened 2 seasons ago when we were all ready to, see in all likelihood an Ice Wheat Kings playoff series, which honestly, Brian, I don't think you could have had a team start and, have a better way to kick off and really establish themselves in Winnipeg than that. And the rivalry was incredible. I mean, I took in a few of the Wheaties Ice games over the course of the season, and they were phenomenal. I mean, it was a rivalry the second they dropped the puck in game number 1 of the series. And then to have that taken away, and of course, the bubble year last year, at least it was an opportunity for some of these young men to play. These are such important development years, but a lot was lost. Even though it was maybe a little bit of a shorter summer and they're getting going on the 1st of September, I imagine these young men that will be vying for spots on the ice are jacked up and ready to go and try to get back to a sense of normalcy and do what they love, which also includes following their hockey dreams.
Well, there's no doubt. You talk about a lot of those players who were in the bubble last year. From the people that I talked to around the Western Hockey League, and then even the players themselves, spent some time with Connor Geekie yesterday. We went to the Ronald McDonald Children's House and did a quick little tour there. Obviously, the Ice and they have a really good working relationship, and got a little bit of an idea as to exactly what is going on behind the scenes. They're building their new facility downtown, and Connor was out there and spent a few minutes with him. And there's no doubt, like you say September 1st, Huss, that's tomorrow.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It's a beautiful day outside. We should be doing this on a golf course right now, other than a hockey rink. But there is a buzz, obviously, with him and Matt Savoy, and then the veteran players who were around here last year, obviously led by Carson Lambos, who was a first-round pick. So there's a pretty good buzz in the building for sure.
Well, let's get right to that, Munzy. I kind of laughed when I saw the camp groups. There was the Stoll group, which, of course, Jarrett Stoll, one of the great players in the history of the franchise before the team moved here. And the other group is the Krebs group. And, I mean, Peyton Krebs, not long removed from this club, was the WHL Player of the Year last year. But, certainly we expect him to be a pro this year. We'll see what team he ends up on, whether he's in Vegas with the Golden Knights or how that works. But you mentioned there is a core of returning players that certainly will give James Patrick a great starting point for this season when the puck drops.
Well, there really is, and I think that's why there's expectation here. And you talked about the rivalry with Brandon. Everybody that I've kind of talked to expect the Wheat Kings and the Ice to be 1-2, whichever order it's going to be when the East Division gets going. And then just based on the way the calendar plays this year, we won't see anybody in BC or the United States, so we'll get a full taste of Eastern Conference play this year. The Edmonton Oil Kings are expected to be really good again under Brad Lauer as well. So this is going to be fun. But, I guess, first of all, when I look at this team, and, I've seen a bit of a look as to what the depth chart may look like. But the fun part about it at this age, come training camp, anybody can come in and really make an impression on the hockey staff led by Matt Cockle and Jake Heisinger. So, you've got Savoy and Geeky down the middle. You've got Lambos on the back end with Orzak that I looked at. You've got guys like Smallwood and Peterson and Milne, and, the list goes on and on. Gage Alexander and Daniel Hauser. How will the net minding play out here during the regular season schedule? Obviously, Gage is excited about being an Anaheim pick this past year, and I know Hauser had an exceptional year last year. It's interesting when you look at the roster because you've got Hauser that's about this big, and you've got Alexander that's about this big. So it's kind of like the Mutt and Jeff scenario there, and there really isn't a solid number one netminder all the way through here. But training camp will allow a lot of things to play out and really give us a good look as to what all these players, will have in store for us when the regular season begins October 1st in Brandon.
Junior hockey, much like college sports, often goes in cycles because you have a limited time with the players. And, there really was a Peyton Krebs era with this club that sort of was started off in Kootenay and bookended finishing up with the WHL Player of the Year. Big shoes to fill for someone to come in and be that leader and that star offensive player. You mentioned Connor Geeky and Matt Savoy, now a little older, wasn't with the club last year, played down the United States League. He's coming back. I would imagine those will be the two players that might stand out on a program when folks get to the rink to see the team for the first time this season.
Yeah, there's a buzz around the organization with both of those guys really getting a full look. Like, they've both had a taste of what some games are about, but they haven't lived the regular Western Hockey League life as of yet. Connor was on the ice here about half an hour ago with one of the instructors with the rink training facility here to make sure that he was ready to go. And then I know he was going to head back to the Brandon area for a couple of days and get ready to roll when the older players take to the ice for their part of training camp on Friday. And I know Matt Savoy's coming in. I talked to him a few days ago. So this is going to be a really enjoyable time for sure.
Now, some great Patrolman Pete's in here and is fired up. He said, so true, Huss. That series would have been incredible, and is ready for the season. And said that he is ready for season tickets. He's buying his Ice season tickets when they go on sale tomorrow. Can't wait. Why don't you give us a quick update on tickets, what people need to know, and how they can get them?
Yeah, WinnipegIce.ca is the best opportunity for you. All the protocols and all the regulations are all listed there. The priority ticket list for season tickets, the sign-up is by the end of today. And then the pre-sale will get underway tomorrow bright and early online. And one of our ticket reps, not me, will look after you in that regard. And away we go. That's your job, Huss, right?
So Pete,
you're the old ticket guy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Get your hands dirty a little, Munz. Roll up the sleeves. Let's get into your new job and help out a bit, man. No, in all seriousness, Pete. So yeah, if you were planning on getting them and you haven't been on that list, go there right now.
Sure.
Make sure you're there. You'll start to get seats. Hey, Mitch was asking, and I know this might be a tough question to ask because of everything that's happened with COVID, and I know a lot of plans have been pushed back. Any word on what's happening with the new home for the Ice right now, or is that still sort of being figured out due to new regulations? Because I imagine building a facility right now in the COVID era, you need to know what you need to know going forward, and things might be different.
Yeah, no news on that regard as of yet. They've given me key cards, but I haven't got that high into the offices as of yet. So when there's something to update, we definitely will, but nothing as of yet.
Yeah, but the games will be at Max Bell going forward for the next for
Ice
this
Cave,
season at least. And yes, of course,
the Ice Cave inside Wayne Fleming Arena.
And they did a great job with that. I mean, I know sometimes people give, and listen, Max Bell's an older rink. It's been around, been a great home for the Bisons, been a big part of everything happening at the university for a long time. But when the Ice came in, if you haven't been there for a few years, did a ton of work to get it up to a level you can. And to be honest, it's a smaller, intimate building, a great place to watch a game when the place is full. And, with the quality of hockey that I think we're going to be seeing, I imagine it will be quite a bit. By the way, quickly, just before I get to the Jets, one other thing, and we'll obviously always focus on our team, Brandon team, what's going on in Manitoba. but Winnipeg fans will get to see one of the most exciting prospects we've seen in hockey in years, and that, of course, is Connor Bedard from the Regina Pats. That guy's going to put some asses in seats wherever he goes, Munzy.
No doubt. Yeah, there's quite a ripple effect, I think, around the entire Eastern Conference. Like, it's too bad for the West that they won't get a chance to see him this year. They will next year. But, yeah, that's one of the treats this year. Actually, it's funny, I saw a Pats alumni yesterday, and as we kind of make our way to, I'm sure, some NHL talk that you wanted to get here right now, I saw Adam Brooks for a little bit yesterday, and he even admitted that being an old Pat himself, that he still talks to his old billets in Regina and other people around the Queen City, and there's a lot of hype about number 98 for sure.
Well, and you know, our pal Rod Paterson out in Regina, who you know, our big J journo Rod was always like, I don't want to talk to rookies, you know, let him. I mean, the guy may as well have been picking up Bedard at the airport yesterday. I mean, he's so excited for him to get back there. So funny how things change when you have a star player like that. Anyways, very exciting for the Ice. If you're thinking about getting tickets, go to winnipegice.ca. Get ready. Priority selection begins tomorrow. And all the other information, if you're not looking at seasons, maybe a pack for the family or some other things, it's all there for you at winnipegice.ca. Munzy, can't have you on without talking about the summer of Chevy. How about the offseason for the Winnipeg Jets? I mean, you know, we've joked about the team being the offseason champs, but in all sincerity, we have had numerous conversations about the team, the talent, the strengths, and some of the weaknesses. And it was pretty clear coming out of that sweep at the hands of the Montreal Canadiens that the blue line needed to be improved. What did you think about the players that Kevin Cheveldayoff brought in, the way that he was able to do it, and the value of the contracts, considering what you needed to pay to get defense on the free agent market this summer?
Well, when he was able to bring in Brendan Dillon and Nate Schmidt, all of a sudden it's check mark, right? Like, those were the two big glaring holes, at least for me. And then you wanted to see what would happen with the restricted free agents and that type. But, you know, I think we've all talked about it ad nauseum, and that's kind of the conversation that's been around this hockey club since the big exit back in the glory days. Remember when the old Dustin Bufflins and Tyler Myers and Ben Sherratt and Jacob Trouba were here? Like, it seems so long ago, but it wasn't. But that was the most envious blue line out of a lot of teams in the entire Western Conference, not only in the Central Division, but, you know, people love to see that top six. And of course, Josh Morrissey was a part of that too. But, you know, then there was that gap. Like, they have the forwards to score. They've got arguably the best netminder in the West right now, in my mind, in Connor Hellebuck, that, you know, I don't think anybody's too worried about that. I think there is some curiosity if Eric Comrie can be the number two all the way through the year. But to have both Brendan and Nate come in here, and the resume and the way they are off the ice, that might be the biggest thing for me, is, you know, continuing to solidify that group inside the dressing room. They've got a fantastic group of players, but to add a couple more people like that understand what the grind is to get deep into the Stanley Cup playoffs, those were two huge additions. And for Paul Stastny to be back too, just more, you know, veteran knowledge on and off the ice inside that room never hurts.
Well, Stastny was the linchpin in getting Schmidt to waive the no trade to come here too.
Yeah,
I mean,
I hear that.
He's paying for himself before he even gets to training camp on this new one-year deal. But speaking to that, and, you know, I was really impressed with Brendan Dillon, and, you know, I've really liked him as a player. He's a big, mean dude that'll clear the front of the net. Connor Hellebuck's going to love Brendan Dillon, put it that way.
No doubt.
But speaking of the, you know, the characters, Nate Schmidt to me is one of the most, he's just an electric dude. And to be honest, and I've said this before on the program, at times over the course of years, especially with whatever happened with the team at the end of 2019, it didn't seem like the Winnipeg Jets as a club maybe were having as much fun. And hey, when you're not winning, you know, there's nothing more fun than winning. I guess my point is that unique personality that comes in, lights up a room, that is fun. I think that as much as he's going to help the Winnipeg Jets on the ice, and that will be significantly, I think his presence as a veteran, I mean, a rookie can come in there, but they don't have the same spot in the room. You know what I mean? I think Nate Schmidt's addition to that Jet dressing room is going to be something that will help the team off the ice over the course of an 82-game grind. And Munzy is a guy that's traveled with the team. You know, like, hey, yeah, it's the best league in the world. They're treated really well, but there are ups and downs like with any job. And a guy like that who can lighten the mood when some times are tough, I think is going to be another great thing for the Winnipeg Jets coming out of that signing or the trade.
Well, there's no question, right? Like, all eyes are on 26 and 55. There's no doubt. Like, everybody looks at Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele to lead this club. Well, you continue to look at the players who are in there now. And, as much as we talk about what Cheveldayoff was able to do this summer, you think about the draft and develop. Like, this is now, as I look at it, as much Adam Lowry, Josh Morrissey, Nikolai Ehlers, Kyle Connor, Connor Hellebuck, the list goes on and on, Andrew Kopp. Like, this is their team as much as it is the guys that are wearing the letters on their jerseys for captain and A's. And then, again, like we talked about in the last statement there, you've got a big, mean guy on the ice. Like, Brendan Dillon doesn't take anything from anybody, right? Like, that's what I loved about him, watching him from an opposition standpoint, is you don't see it much anymore in the league, but he's going to stick you if he's given the opportunity. And, it's not an easy place to be around the net that he's covering. And then I think we all would like to talk to Nate Schmidt 365 days of the year, right? Like, just
he needs a show on Winnipeg Sports Talk. We were going to give him an hour every day, just Nate Schmidt holding court.
Yeah, you should have a weekly or a monthly show with him, and probably wouldn't be too much of an ask if he was willing to do it. But, just knowing people that have been around him for a long time, that's him every day. So anytime you can add some fun, and you mentioned it, at the bottom line, where this team is right now, I think we all look at the fact that, at least I do, and a number of other people that I've had some conversations with, they think it's going to be Colorado, Winnipeg 1-2 either way on this side of the division, and then let everything play out. But it's a fun time of the year. It's right around the corner. We're all excited about it for sure.
Munzy, let me ask you about the bottom six right now, because that is really where we've seen the change, at least up front with the Winnipeg Jets. We were all focused on the blue line. That looks pretty good right now. We know the goaltender. Top six, I mean, those guys, they might switch some spots around, but I mean, we pretty much know who's going to be there. Andrew Kopp's back on the 1-year deal. Adam Lowry's back long-term. Mason Appleton goes to the Kraken. So you've got a spot on that right side of line number 3. And then the entire third line is gone. No more Nate Thompson, no more Trevor Lewis, no more Matthew Perreault. Riley Nash is in. How do you see the bottom six? And let's assume that Nash is in that mix, and whether they give him an opportunity with Lowry and Kopp, or whether he's on the fourth line, let's assume he's there. Of the other players within the organization, who do you see maybe as having the inside track going into training camp to be in that opening day lineup?
Well, one guy I would look at is, a former Western League guy in Jansen Harkins, right? Like, where does he fit into the fold? Like, I don't have the roster in front of me. And to be honest with you, this is a bit of a bad answer right now, but I've been so focused on the ice, I haven't really kept an eye on the bottom.
Let me give you a power. Let me give you a power pull. We've got Christian Vesalainen. We've got Jansen Harkins, David Gustafson,
which I gave you, Harkins,
and Gus is a guy. I mean, he was the Manitoba Moose Player of the Year, and to me, the fact that they didn't get another veteran center sort of indicates that there's a spot there for the taking for David Gustafson, and Harkins, I think, is a no-brainer in that, he was sort of the victim of numbers last year, and came in. And then I guess the other guy we have to mention is Dominic Toninato. And I joke that, after game 53 last year, most Jet fans couldn't have picked the guy out of a Police lineup. And then after the first playoff game, the guy was the toast of the town. He's re-signed. He's back. I would assume that he would be in the mix. I mean, do you really see those 4 players sort of battling for those spots along with Nash?
Well, so I would want to see Harkins maybe get his chance, because you think of the guys that have been with Kopp and Lowry over the years. Like, we talk about Mason Appleton, you think about what Brandon Tanev was able to do before that. And maybe it's just I'm partial to him because I like the guys so much being around him for the last couple of years, and just that tenacity that Harkins shows. Like, I'd love to see him get an opportunity there. But the one name that you mentioned, like, this for me has to be David Gustafson's year to kind of grab that ball and run with it. I'm not saying that he dropped it and didn't have it last year, but they went with a little bit more experience and gave him some time to season and just understand more of what the NHL game was all about, and obviously went overseas for a while too. So it'll be curious. And then the one other guy that I mentioned earlier on is Cole Perfetti. Like, is he ready for the NHL? I don't know. But the one thing that we've seen with Paul Maurice and this coaching staff is when training camp gets underway here in a couple of weeks, if there's a kid that's going to give himself every opportunity that he can to try and grab that role, it is Perfetti with, kind of the way he's come out of junior and what he did at World Juniors last year. There's some excitement for me for him. And I think we all, as much as we talk about Nate Schmidt, I think we could all talk to Cole Perfetti every day too.
Well, no doubt. And it's a great point on Perfetti. And before they had this amendment to the ability to play in the American League for kids the players that did last year, which Perfetti fits in.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been an amazing training camp story for the Jets on a very tough decision where do you keep him on the NHL roster all year or do you send him back to junior, a place that he's already dominated that I think for Cole would really feel like a step back next season, considering all the different places he played and the way that he did. For the Jets, though, the way I really see this going is that I think he'll be destined for Manitoba. We'll play there. We'll play some big minutes along with, Ville Heinola and Dylan Sandberg in all likelihood.
Right.
Have the opportunity, much like Gustafson did last year, to play an important role, to play the big minutes, to take a huge step in their development. And then when you get to the end of the season, depending on how things are going, maybe Cole Perfetti is like a Cole Caulfield type that shows up at the end of the year and has the opportunity to make an impact then. I mean, I really see Cole Perfetti's kind of NHL window more likely probably starting next season. But I'll tell you what, Brian, considering what he did last year, playing as a professional, playing against men, going to the World Championships as well, the conversation's very different right now than I thought we'd be having, and that's because of what he did on the ice last season.
Well, it gives them options, right? And as much as we talk about the experience for this club, that little bit of youthful enthusiasm coming into the room never hurts either. And obviously none of us were inside the dressing room last year with COVID, but just the buzz around the players with, seeing what he was able to do and then watching him on the world stage, like that's big for the older players too. And I know they like the way he came into camp and he kind of, did the rookie things and all that type of deal. So he's going to be an exciting guy both inside the community here, and I know the veteran players like him too. So when the big guys like you, there's always a little bit more, I don't want to say ease for the younger player coming in, but there might be a little bit more rope, or there could be a little bit more of a nudge towards the coaches saying, hey, let's give this guy a chance.
Yeah, well, I mean, I tell you what, he seems to be a very hard person not to like. I mean, I haven't had a ton of interactions with him, but anytime we've had him on the program or just heard him talk to people, he's, an excited young man that's incredibly talented and hopefully a big part of this team going forward. One more thing on the Jets, and you'll be a perfect person to ask this. There's a lot of concern, and this is first world problems for a hockey team. It speaks to how well that the offseason's gone, that the biggest concern right now in the chat is the backup goalie position. I maintain that Eric Carney in his 5 games with the Winnipeg Jets, there was a few instances where, let's just say, the team didn't really step up in front of Eric Carney, and to me, the jury is still out. We'll see what he can do. But I also do think that there is a lot on his shoulders going into training camp to show that he's ready to be that guy. What do you make of Comrie's situation and the opportunity that seems to be presented to him going into Jets training camp, Brian?
Well, over the last few years, he definitely did have that role as the number 2 or the number 3 guy that was coming in behind Connor Hellebuck and Laurent Brossoit. And I don't know if you would look at any of his starts saying that was the easy game for him to try and win. Like he'd be going in on back-to-backs, or he'd be going in after a long day of travel or whatever it was. And that's just kind of the life of, the young kid that's coming into the NHL to kind of get his feet wet and just see how it goes. And then obviously bounced around the waiver wire for a while. And, I think we all love Eric Comrie as a person. Like, how can't you? If you've spent more than 15 seconds with him, I think you'll fall in love with him immediately. Yeah. So I'm excited for him to have this opportunity. Like, he's been waiting for it, right? Like, he spent a lot of time seasoning, I guess you can say, with, Rick St. Croix, who's retired from the Manitoba Moose, and obviously the former Moose, and Drew McIntyre's coming in to work with the netminders now. So that's kind of cool for you and I and some of the old guys around the city that used to watch the Moose before the NHL was here, and they were the big game in town. But, for Comrie specifically, that's the question for me too. Like that is the one area that, Connor Hellebuck's going to want to play again. He's going to come into camp and he'll want to play, 65 games out of 82, or he might want to play 70. Manageable wise, based on the way the calendar is, it's probably not the right thing. But hey, you just need a little bit of confidence. You need some of those games that go your way, and we'll see how it goes. But there will be a lot of curiosity in the crease for sure when 37's not in there.
All right, Brian, this has been great to catch up again. Ice
Yeah,
training
for sure.
camp begins tomorrow. Give our best to James Patrick. We'll look forward to talking to him at some point before the start of the season and many of the young players. Reminding folks, if you're thinking about getting ice tickets for you or the family, go to winnipegice.ca right now. You can get in today. Priority seating begins tomorrow. And when does the season start?
October 1st in Brandon, and then the home opener at the Ice Cave inside Wayne Fleming Arena goes the next Saturday night, October 2nd. So 4 exhibition games coming up this month, a home and home with Brandon, home and home with the Regina Pats, and then away we go.
Looking forward to it, Munzy. We'll stay in touch. Keep us up to date on what Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners need to know about the Ice. We'll maybe grab a couple players on over the course of the next month. And
for sure,
look forward to those games against the Wheaties. And, of course, the Pats coming to town and much more when the Ice get back on the ice, as it were, coming up in about a month. You be well, and all the best to the squad.
Sounds good, Huss. Take care. Good to catch up again. Say hi to Remo, too.
It certainly will. Thanks so much. There's Brian Munz, the director of communications and play-by-play voice of the Winnipeg Ice, who begin their training camp tomorrow out at the rink. And again, all home games at the Ice Cave, Wayne Fleming Arena, University of Manitoba. You may have known it as Max Bell before. All right, we're going to get into some CFL talk with Justin Dunk of 3 Down Nation. Before we do that, I want to give a big shout out to our friends at Knott Auto Corp. Knott has been a great friend of ours since day number 1 here on the program, and we can't thank them enough, but they're doing it to let you know about maybe the best deals when it comes to automobiles in the city of Winnipeg. Why not get into the car of your dreams at a great price with the help of the Knott team? As I mentioned, I was over at the dealership the other day. A number of incredible Teslas, got a ride in one. If you're ever thinking of going electric, talk to the experts at Knott. They've been doing Teslas for years here in Winnipeg. And there's so much more. Service, detailing, and the new car lab opening very soon as well. If you haven't seen, pop by, see them at Waverly and McGillivray, or you can check them out online at knott.ca. Why not get into the car of your dreams with Knott Auto Corp? And of course, our friends at Boston Pizza. Guess what, folks? It is Burger Week. I was doing a little digging to see what our friends at Boston Pizza have up for Burger Week, and they have 3 for you. BP Keniston has the Case Burger. It's the ultimate kitchen and bar collab. Boston Pizza's signature Caesar cocktail meets a burger. Beef topped with bacon strips dusted in the Caesar dressing, cheddar, tomatoes, pickled beans, and onions, and creamy aioli. The BP Taylor has the jalapeno mac and cheeseburger. This one looks amazing. It's the burger layered with prosciutto, lettuce, tomato, jalapeno pickled onions, topped with the jalapeno and bacon spiked mac and cheese, served on a garlic buttered brioche bun. And at BP Henderson, it's the bourbon barbecue bacon burger with bourbon spiked barbecue sauce, bacon strips, barbecue roasted balsamic red onions, iceberg lettuce, and finished with a cool ranch drizzle. Burger Week is here. Pop by your local Boston Pizza for any of the 3 amazing selections coming up at BP. And we're back at live racing tonight. I was over last night. Couple close calls. We'll get back and make our picks a little later on, but it is quite nice. Today and tomorrow will be great nights for live racing. Only a couple weeks left after this one. So why don't you get out to Assiniboia Downs tonight? Just have your proof of vaccination. You're in there with friends and family. 50% capacity in the lower level as well as outside. And as always, the VLTs are open from 9 until 12:15. The terrace dining room is open, but you must make reservations. You can do those and get more information at asdowns.com. Check out the races tonight if you're not able to attend on ASD Live, and you can bet the races remotely at hpibet.com. That's what Remis and I will be doing a little bit later on today. All right, let's talk some CFL. We are counting down to Labor Day weekend, and who better to do that with than our guy Justin Dunk of 3 Down Nation. Dunk, what's up, man? Great to have you back on the program. You know what, Reem? I got Justin muted. I'm not sure whether... Okay, perfect. Great to have you on the program, my man. Hey, before we get to this weekend, what'd you think of Sunday night? Bombers Stamps. Pretty wild game. Mark Leggio, legs now the toast of the town after going 4 for 4, but pretty wild. And when you think of Winnipeg and Calgary, I'm not sure that at the beginning of the season we'd be talking about Jake Maier and Mark Leggio being the players everyone was talking about, Justin.
It's part of the beauty of the CFL. You never know the stars that will emerge in a season, Huss. And I agree with you. Even though it was an 18-16 final, the game was highly entertaining. So it shows you it doesn't necessarily have to be a high-scoring affair. Overall, there were some intriguing plays on both sides. You mentioned Maier, the rookie quarterback for the Stamps, making his mark, continuing to do so and impress people around the league and, of course, among the Stampeders. And the Bombers, they get it done again at home.
What'd you think of the return of Andrew Harris?
He looked like his vintage self, let's say. He was powerful, physical, ran tough, still has the ability to be elusive, has the quicks, the spin move, ripped off a 20-yarder, and carried the load. 17 carries for 81 yards. Really looked like he hasn't missed much, even though he's been off for well over a year and a half since that all-time performance, we'll call it, in the 2019 Grey Cup.
So we get ready for Labor Day, taking on the Saskatchewan Roughriders. But before we do that, what were your takeaways from the Stamps? A couple for me. First of all, Jake Maier's legit, and he can throw the ball, and he is certainly, another in the line of pretty talented Calgary quarterbacks. The other is that Dave Dickinson has, as Paul Maurice would call them, big old church bells hanging down. That was the ballsiest, borderline insane call I can remember in a tie game with a quarterback in his second game from their own 23 throwing a deep ball. But I think it goes to show they thought they could win, but they really did need to pull out all the stops to make that happen.
They did, but Dave Dickinson had confidence in Jake Maier to make that throw, which he did. It dime to Josh Huff, 3rd and short, as you mentioned, backed up in their own end. It was a play that they had practiced and that they were just waiting for that right time to go to Huss, and they talked about it on the sidelines. Dickinson called a timeout, and he was really fired up about the play. That's what Maier said post-game. And then Maier was excited for the opportunity to go out and execute it, and really was happy that Dickinson had the confidence to go with him in that situation and let it loose. And Dickinson admitted after the game that if they didn't get that first down on the play, that it would have for sure led to a field goal, perhaps a touchdown, and maybe cost the Stamps the game overall. But they really liked the situation. And I don't think Dickinson would just call that for any quarterback. It would have to be one that would have his trust. And clearly Maier has that even after just a couple games.
Well, and then there was the option pass to the quarterback in the fourth quarter, which again, a very tight game. You're maybe going a little deeper into the playbook. But once again, it showed the confidence that Dickinson has in his offense. And I'll tell you what, he took a pretty big hit on that play too, and got up and was able to get back going. And that's important, a very important quality to have in the CFL.
It certainly is. You got to bounce back up, and it shows that Maier's a sneaky athlete. You might look at him and say, he's a classic pocket style passer, but he can get out, catch the ball, and move a little bit. Maybe wants to get down a little earlier next time though in the open field.
Yeah, the kicking game's been a big conversation here in Winnipeg, obviously, and like any star player that leaves, Justin Medlock gone left a huge hole for this team. And Leggio in camp was, the Bombers had 100 guys here, and they had one kicker. And then close to the beginning of the season, Crepinha was released, and he was signed, and was not great in the first couple games. So in comes Leggio as Crepinha is injured. And it wasn't perfect. He missed the extra point to get things going. And I can tell you, being in the stands, there was a few looks around going, oh man. But then he kicks 4, misses what would have been a 35-yarder, saved by the time count violation, blasts the 45-yarder through the middle. A huge confidence builder for the kicker, but I imagine also for the coaching staff in the young man as well.
Certainly, when you have a rookie in that situation, you want to see how he deals with adversity. And fortunately for him, he got a bit of a warm-up kick there because of the time count violation, made it more difficult on himself. But the fact that he came back and hit that kick and didn't shank the next one or didn't do anything else, miss it wide, left, right, short, and just completely botch the situation, shows you that Leggio has the stones going forward to be able to deliver. That's no surprise to anyone from Western University, or the formerly known University of Western Ontario, where he was with the Mustangs for a number of years. That kid made a ton of clutch kicks there. That's part of the reasons why the Bombers drafted him, and they want to see how he was going to do in that situation, because you can't script it in practice, Huss. You got to go through that in real time, and he dealt with it well, and it will benefit him for the future.
What were your takeaways from the Montreal-Hamilton game? Is this the Hamilton team we expected to see that maybe we didn't quite, in two very tough road games to begin the season? I mean, hard to imagine they were staring 0-3 in the face, JD, after going 15-3 in an 18-game season in 2019 with the majority of the same players coming back.
It still wasn't the team from 2019, and obviously it's a bunch of different players there now as well. They got a total team effort, let's say, played complementary football. Frankie Williams is really the star of the game, but Montreal, to be quite honest, didn't play very well, and the Ticats were still sort of touch and go to win that ball game when Vernon Adams Jr., to be quite honest, put out a stinker. So I don't think the Ticats are at that top level yet, and I don't necessarily think we're going to see that dominant Hamilton team that we saw in 2019, because they have so many new pieces there, especially on the offensive line. Riker Matthews is clearly a big loss. Mike Filer, I think, is an underrated one as well. So the Ticats are going to be different. We got to stop comparing them to 2019 and the 15-3 team, because it's a much different group overall. Like, we have Stephen Dunbar Jr. out there making plays in 2021, and Brandon Banks, we haven't seen him go vertical yet. So the group is different. It's a couple years removed, a couple years older for some of those players. So this Ticats team can't just be counted on to win the East with ease again.
What any takeaways from the BC Ottawa game, other than it's going to be a very long season for our pal Lapo?
Yeah, it sure seems that way. It was pretty ugly from Ottawa's perspective on offense. Their defense is solid, Huss. Like, they got a unit there that can hold them in ball games, but teams around the league are saying, as long as we don't turn it over and we play all right, we know when we play Ottawa, we're going to get a win. So that's what teams are going to do against them.
What about on the BC side of things? It seemed like Mike Riley is getting a more comfortable game after game. I mean, how do you see BC fitting in the hierarchy of the West right now heading into Labor Day?
Yeah, I thought BC could really surprise some people. And obviously you had the quarterback situation, mostly due to Michael Riley's arm/elbow issue that he was dealing with through training camp. Now it looks like he's well past that and is throwing the ball the gunslinger mentality that we're used to seeing there. So as long as Michael Riley's healthy, I'm intrigued to see what Nathan Rourke can do in the future as a Canadian QB backer. But as long as Riley's healthy in 2021, the Lions can compete. They have a younger defense. Jordan Williams, the linebacker there, the Canadian, who was a number 1 overall pick in the 2020 CFL draft, is an absolute stud. I believe he's leading, or if he's not, he's tied for the league lead in tackles with 28. You got a veteran back in there with former Blue Bomber Marcus Sales, part of that group. And you got a young front, probably led by Obo Mgwach, who has a couple sacks on the season. And of course, on offense, you got Brian Burnham, who's playing at his typical all-star level. And Lucky Whitehead, the former Blue Bomber, has absolutely gone off in this new role where they're using him at that short side receiver spot and really utilizing his speed as a true receiver.
Justin Dunk with us here from 3 Down Nation on Winnipeg Sports Talk. I want to get to the Roosevelt signing and Labor Day weekend, but first up, the biggest story in the Canadian Football League, unfortunately, over the last couple of weeks has been the situation in Edmonton. What are you hearing as far as the game this week? Everything sounding good right now, no hiccups. And maybe if you could comment on the top story right now at 3 Down Nation, the Elks releasing a starting Canadian left guard, Jacob Ruby, due to breach of COVID protocols. Obviously, the Elks aren't screwing around with this right now.
The Elks are not, but to be quite honest, in my eyes, this release is unfair, and I'll get into it a little more in depth right now. Jacob Ruby, you mentioned, starting offensive lineman. He was essentially just out with his family who had come up from the United States, and really unknowingly, I think, or let's say there would be a better term to use here, that he wasn't intentionally breaking the protocols, but he gets made the example of. When I have people from around the league calling me and texting me and telling me about guys going out to nightclubs all the time, that Jacob Ruby has made the example here is completely unfair. I understand the gravity of the situation when you have a double-digit number of tests and it's caused at least one game to be in jeopardy, and hopefully there's not another one in terms of Labor Day. It seems like as long as they don't have any more positive tests, that the Elks will indeed be able to travel to Calgary and play the Stampeders. But it just doesn't make any sense to me that you make an example out of one player who was doing something that all of us are doing right now, like having a meal with his family. I just really can't understand that that is the guy that you singled out of everybody to punish. Makes no sense to me. I think it's totally unfair. Knowing Jacob Ruby a little bit, I'm sure he's not going to complain about it, but to make him the scapegoat or the fall guy, I really have an issue with, when, as I said, there are lots of speculation as to what has led to that outbreak there. And there are players around the league that are going out, and that this guy was having a meal with his family, like a good, kind-hearted thing. And he's the guy that gets let go.
I guess, we can't really have this conversation without talking about the elephant in the room, and that's the CFL vaccination rates. What are you hearing about that 85% threshold? How many teams are there, and are there some problem areas still in the CFL when it comes to that?
The numbers are climbing generally and getting closer to that 85% vaccine rate that the league wants to see. The issue here is that the league can't come and mandate it, and Randy Ambrosie has said that he would like to, but you can't within the confines of the collective bargaining agreement. And the CFLPA is sitting there saying, hey, we got to defend our guys on both sides here. We want them to be able to make the choice that they deem is best for them. And I would go a step farther and say the CFL has allowed the fans to do that because of all of the protocols that they've put in place, where, except in Winnipeg, you have to be vaccinated there in the Manitoba capital, but every other stadium to get in there, you either show proof of vaccination or a negative COVID-19 test. So that's where it gets a little tricky in terms of the vaccination rates. It does seem like they're rising here, especially as we look at the target date for the federal government. And I believe, this is just my opinion, no matter who gets into power, minority, majority, what have you, that there's going to be a mandate that if you're going to travel in this country, that you're going to have to be vaccinated. And I'm talking about a plane or a train. So I think a lot of people are seeing that, and especially players across the league, and are saying, well, I better get vaccinated, or I'm going to make a decision at that time to stop playing football unless there is an exemption made. And I would imagine, especially the CFLPA is working hard behind the scenes to continue to give those players options who are simply making a choice to be unvaccinated.
Yeah, listen, much like many people that have made that choice right now, their options are getting less and less by the day, and it really does seem like there's the writing on the wall. Can you see a scenario where that gets goes into act? There's no exemption. I don't think there'll be an exemption. That's just a personal opinion, but let's assume for a minute, Justin, that there isn't. Will we see players on CFL teams say, well, I guess that's it for me, and go, and then GMs are going to be looking to fill holes in the middle of the season for potentially important players in the lineup?
That's the talk around the league right now, that if you have players that are unvaccinated on your roster, star players, are you going to have to release them? And it seems like that's the way it's going in the CFL. And the message from Randy Ambrosie, he sure doesn't want to have any exemptions made. I think from their perspective, they'd like that to act as a vaccine mandate to get all the players vaccinated. I'm just talking about from their standpoint. So what you mentioned, Huss, is highly possible that teams around the league are going to have those difficult conversations with players and say, hey, look, we know the target date. We have a pretty good idea that this legislation, let's say, is going to be put into place. So you need to essentially make the decision now so we can prepare one way or another, whether we're going to have you on the field or not, for how we're going to fill that spot going forward.
Justin Dunk's with us talking CFL from 3 Down Nation. Hat tip to our pal and your partner, John Hodge, for being the Kreskin when it came to the Bombers potentially signing Naaman Roosevelt. It was hilarious, Justin. Yesterday we were talking to Darren Bombing, and We had a couple people asking about it in the chat. We discussed it. 20 minutes later, while we're still on the air, the Bombers signed Naaman Roosevelt. What did you think of the signing? The Bombers said this was in the works before they had a serious case of the dropsies on Sunday night against Calgary. But this is interesting, and by all accounts, and I knew you were digging into this, we weren't sure whether he'd have to quarantine, but sounds like he's available for Labor Day as well.
That could be possible, and I know there were other teams around the league that were keeping tabs on Naaman Roosevelt, and you mentioned it, that I don't think this was necessarily just a reactive signing to what happened with some of those drops. I mean, the fact that it happened so quickly shows me, in terms of the timeline of when they played to when Roosevelt was signed, really tells me that the signing was at least being talked about beforehand. Naaman Roosevelt comes in with the best catch rate in the league from the 2019 season. He's a guy that can move the chains. And Zach Collaros absolutely loved him, raved about him during their time together with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So on many levels, it makes a lot of sense for the Bombers. There have been some times where there have been some mental errors within that offense from some of the younger receivers, and you bring in a veteran who is a guy that's not going to go bust on a lot of those MEs, as the players call them, and a guy that you know is going to catch the football. And you have Kenny Lawler, who's shown he can stretch the field. You bring in Roosevelt, who still can get over the top, not like he could when he was a youngster and even back in his NFL days with the Buffalo Bills, but a guy that can work the middle of the field, understands defenses, has seen tons of looks, and will be on the same page with Zach Collaros for critical second and long situations especially.
Well, and of course, this is all in the shadow of the preparation for the Labor Day Classic between the Bombers and Riders. For my money, the best rivalry in the Canadian Football League, the biggest weekend of the Canadian Football League season. And it always seems every year there's some guy that was either on the Bombers that's playing for the Riders, and the Riders to the Bombers, that adds a little more spice. You don't often get it the actual week of the game, but just a little more topics for us to talk about, as I say, before we get to kickoff on the weekend.
That's right. Adds a little intrigue to the game. And there were a lot of Riders fans, admittedly, that were upset that Naaman Roosevelt wasn't brought back to Saskatchewan. Now, Riders are 3-0. They're looking pretty good. Cody Fajardo has that offense rolling. They got a bunch of, let's say, kind of younger receivers that they're going with. And even though Shaq Evans is out of the lineup, those guys have stepped up. But there are a lot of people that grew to love the president, as they referred to him as, in Saskatchewan. So it'll be weird, I'm sure, for those Rough Rider fans to see Naaman Roosevelt put on blue and gold and be a visitor on Labor Day Sunday. It'll be super weird, something they probably never thought they would see. And then, of course, the rematch in the Banjo Bowl. But as you said, adds a little something to the rivalry.
Yeah, it might not quite be Weston Dressler level, but it will be significant. And I have a feeling Zach Collaros will be looking for Roosevelt in the end zone come Sunday at the Labor Day game. Riders opened as a 2.5-point favorite. That's where it is right now. I mean, what do you make of the matchup? I mean, Saskatchewan's undefeated right now. The Bombers have the one blemish on their record. I mean, this really, you don't often get a Labor Day game where both teams are doing quite well, but that's what we have this year, making it even more intriguing going into the weekend.
I would lean to the Bombers right now because I don't think Saskatchewan has seen a defense like that yet this season. They had the BC Lions in week 1 who were admittedly young and were making some errors, and that led to Fajardo leading the Riders to over 30 points in that game. And then in week 2, you played a Tiger Cats team that wasn't all together. Clearly, we haven't seen their best. And then you go against the Ottawa Redblacks, who have a solid D, but no playmakers like what Jackson Jeffcoat is doing right now for the Bombers. And Willie Jefferson drawing all the attention, even though he doesn't have the stats, the attention that he's drawing, I believe, from watching the TV cut, is allowing Jackson Jeffcoat to get these one-on-one opportunities and get after the quarterback and force fumbles for them already on the season. And then Adam Bighill has been all over the field. I know there were some personnel men that were out there that were questioning whether Adam Bighill had gotten to the peak and then was starting to go to the downside of his career. Well, he's clearly showed that that's not the case. In 2021, of course, you have Brandon Alexander, the veteran on the back end, and a bunch of young guys back there. But that defense right now is playing at a high level, and so admittedly is the Riders' offense. So it'll be really intriguing. And then you mentioned it earlier, you're going to have Zach Collaros going against this Saskatchewan defense, guided by Jason Chavez, the defensive coordinator, that has played better than a lot of people expected as well. AC Leonard looks like a true number one legit pass rusher that you can rely on. Jonathan Woodard's leading the league with 5 sacks in just 3 games, and the linebacking core that people had question marks going into the season about, led by Deion Lacey, has looked stout. And you got the veteran secondary there, I would say, led by Mike Edom and Nick Marshall on the corner as well. So many intriguing matchups in the game across the board.
Well, and you know, both of the teams have done well. Both of the quarterbacks have played well. And I know you guys are following the race for the MOP throughout the season on 3 Down Nation. I mean, if both of these teams continue to play at or near this level and are battling for first place right down to the final week of the season, could you see this next 2 weeks in these head-to-head matchups be maybe being the linchpin to put either Fajardo or Collaros over the other guy for the season-long race?
Yeah, it could be critical for the MOP award, and it could be critical for the number 1 seed in the West Division as well. I certainly agree, and I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult for Fajardo to go against this defense. But if he does and proves that he can get it done and shows well against Jackson Jeffcoat and Willie Jefferson and the rest of the group over there, then I think it'll keep him ahead of Collaros right now, who is leading the league in touchdown passes with 6. Fajardo's done a lot of his damage as well, or done some damage, I should say, on the ground with his legs and getting in the end zone too. So I think you hit the nail on the head right there, Huss, that both of these games are going to have major implications for individual awards and for seeding to get that coveted team award that everyone wants.
Well, and speaking of seeding and race for the top of the division, you know, I think this Toronto-Hamilton game is very intriguing for a number of reasons, in that the Argos have looked very, very good so far. Just ask the Bombers. And the Hamilton Tiger Cats, after that rough start, you know, did get a very important win and get to 1-2. You can often throw the records out when you get to Labor Day. It's a little different this year because we're still so early in the season. But what an opportunity for the Argos to really stake their claim as the team to beat in the East right now, coming up against the Ticats at their stadium.
And that's just what the Argos are thinking going into Tim Hortons Field, the Ticats home opener. Finally, they've been on the road for 3 straight games plus a bye week in there to start their season. And the Argonauts were loading up all off season with that in mind, legitimately competing with the Tiger Cats in 2021. And you look at it right now, and the Argos are leading the East Division at 2-1. You mentioned the win over the Blue Bombers. They have the game in week 4 that's going to have to be rescheduled if it even does get played against the Edmonton Elks. Hopefully it does. But overall, Toronto is looking like they can be right there with Hamilton competing for top spot in the East. It's certainly not out of the question. They have one of the best front sevens, arguably, on defense in the entire CFL. Charleston Hughes on the outside leading the way, Enoch Mwamba in the middle, and a bunch of other intriguing playmakers. If they get Shane Ray back, I really think he can make some noise, the former first-round NFL pick. And Nick Arbuckle, you alluded to it, against the Bombers, looked really, really impressive in that start at home to get the victory, throw for over 300 yards. And to be quite honest, I felt like it was one of the most explosive quarterback performances that we've seen so far in 2021 in terms of throwing the football down the field. So the Ticats well know, and they're only 1-2, so they've been knocked back a little bit to start the season, but they can't take the Argos lightly here on Labor Day or any other game.
No doubt. Hey, just while we're on the Argos, what do you thought of Ryan Dinwiddie? You know, I was, you know, the emotion that he showed on the sideline in game number 1 was a little different than the guy quarterbacks. I mean, you would know, always trying to be relatively stoic, not get too high, not get too low. I thought that this Argos team would be a work in progress, maybe through the first half of the season. I've been really impressed with what he's been able to do as a rookie head coach in this league with a myriad of guys. Most of them were not Toronto Argonauts in 2019.
I would agree. I thought the Argos were going to start a little slower and then get it going, but clearly that year in there in 2020 where there wasn't a season, but Ryan Dinwiddie had to prepare, use that well, because he looks like a leader and is really guiding this team. He's got some fire, and you talk to some of the players and they really feel like he's a coach that they can get behind. I don't want to use a cliche of a player's coach because everybody's unique and different, but it seems like the team is buying in overall. And to put all these pieces together that they brought in there from various CFL teams and former NFL players, and of course players from U Sports or the NCAA, and put that group together, it looks like a real difficult team to contend with for anybody in the CFL. And the Blue Bombers definitely learned that on their trip to BMO Field. So Ryan Dinwiddie off to a really great start, to be quite honest, with the Argos.
Two other games on Labor Day weekend. The early game Friday is going to be Montreal at Ottawa. I won't spend too much time. We kind of touched on those teams, but I do want to ask you about the Battle of Alberta. Fingers crossed that this game goes on as planned. It would be devastating for the Canadian Football League to lose one of the Labor Day Classics. Calgary, I believe yesterday this line opened at Calgary -3.5, and it's now Calgary -6. Are people sleeping on the Elks, or is it a matter of just what this team's been through, having the facility shut down, the team basically being on pause for this the last week plus, indicating that it's going to be a tough time for the Elks to get back to and where they were was a poor start and just getting their first win of the season before they got shut down.
The outbreak to me has to be influencing the line. You consider that the Elks haven't practiced since before they played their last game, which was in BC, their first win of the season. And the Lions admittedly didn't really play very well in that game. I thought it was a bit of a stinker, and the Elks kind of were lucky to get a win even at that. So it makes a lot of sense to me that Calgary's a heavy favorite here overall. Dave Dickinson, I straight up asked him after the game in Winnipeg if he knew if Levi Mitchell was going to be coming back on Labor Day. He didn't say for sure, but he also didn't say that it was going to be a definite thing. So they'll monitor that situation with Mitchell dealing with the broken leg. And if it is Jake Maier, I mean, the way that he looked at IG Field with a packed house and the loudest fans, as they claim out there in the CFL, him being at home in Calgary, it'll be easy after the start that he had out there. So I can understand why Calgary's a heavy favorite, because the Elks are still uncertain with what's going on. They just released Jacob Ruby, we talked about earlier in the show, who's a starting left guard for them, a big fella in the middle that was helping protect Trevor Harris. And the fact they haven't been on the field, they're out of a rhythm. So I get the sense that that is why the odds makers have installed Calgary as such a heavy favorite.
Justin Dunk, a 3-Down Nation with us, talking CFL and getting ready for Labor Day weekend. What do you and Haji have coming up the rest of the week for CFL fans before we actually get to some football on the weekend?
Oh my goodness, lots going on. Obviously following all the news that's out there. And if you look at the Calgary quarterback situation, there was a little bit of intrigue there, Huss, and I'll give you a little nugget here, to be quite honest. And Jake Maier signed a 2-year contract. So generally, if you're a rookie coming in, you either sign a minimum, a 1+1, they call it, but it's a 2-year contract, or you can sign a 3-year contract, which a lot of teams try to get these young, especially American players to do, because the Canadian ones have, I think, smarter agents and don't get them tied into those deals. So Jake Maier's on a 2-year contract. So if you're the Stamps, you got this window of opportunity here where you can keep Levi Mitchell under contract at the rate you have him at currently, which is going to be in and around $700,000. Now, this year that's prorated, but Jake Maier is making the base minimum salary. And now there's some incentives in his contract, but $65,000 for the production he's been giving, that's easy to keep him as a backup this year and then next year as well. So I'm digging into the contract of Maier and how that might look for the future there in terms of that situation. And then we'll be covering all of the games leading up to Labor Day and breaking them down afterwards.
Love it, Justin. Always great having you on the program. The site's amazing. Must read for all CFL fans on a daily basis. You go to 3-Down Nation, get all of your latest CFL info, and let's do this again soon. And most importantly, enjoy Labor Day weekend. It should be awesome.
Yes, Huss. I hope you cash some of those bets, buddy.
Fingers crossed. Me too. Thanks, pal. Great having you on the show. Is Justin Dunk. Follow him on Twitter at JDunk12. Justin Dunk of 3-Down Nation. All right, we got to talk NFL. Big news today out of New England. But before we do that, Little Brown Jug, our official brewing sponsor, giving you that great stuff, the 1919, the Summer Lager, the Hefeweizen, and the Summer Variety Pack. It's all available for you at your local beer store or bottle shop. It's also available at the brewery down on William Avenue. And we've still got some nice weather, some patio time. If you haven't already checked out the Little Brown Jug HQ, what are you waiting for? Pop down there with some friends, grab a couple slices of pizza, have a couple cold 1919s on the patio, and you can pick up all the great Little Brown Jug product and take it home as well. Of course, you can order it online for home delivery at littlebrownjug.ca. And the Gold Eyes are back beginning tonight. Final homestand of the year, 7 games. And we've got the good stuff on tap at Craft Beer Corner beginning tonight. If you're at the ballpark, make sure you head out to left field, get to Craft Beer Corner, Little Brown Jug on tap for the next 7 games of Gold Eyes season. All right, let's get Michael Remis back in here. I do want to thank Breezy Bend while I'm doing that. Of course, Tour Championship is coming up. The top 30 players going for, $15 million. 1 Canadian in the field. That's Corey Connors. And the 30th ranked player, Patrick Reed, who got in on a late bogey by K.H. Lee, is out of, he didn't have COVID. He just had bilateral pneumonia, whatever that is. Anyways, looks like Reed's going to be there. He wants to have a strong showing to make sure that he's part of that Ryder Cup team. It's been such an amazing year with Breezy Bend. I've been working with them for a long time. Want to personally thank Corey Johnson for his support. Congratulate all the Breezy golfers on an amazing season. Cannot wait to get back out there next year. If you haven't already, look into making Breezy Bend your golfing home for next season. They've been compiling a waiting list. Incredibly successful years. Golf continues to explode. But when it comes to a golfing home for your family, junior program, ladies programs, amazing social scene, a 19th hole as good as anywhere, and a beautiful course that continues to have a lot of money pumped in on improvements. It really is the place to be. Corey Johnson over at Breezy Bend. You can find out more information at breezybend.ca. Looking forward to another great summer with Breezy Bend next year. All right, let's get Remis back in here. We do want to get to the Coolbet lines. A very interesting combo hockey CFL props Coolbet's put out. And of course, the women's gold medal game tonight between the United States and Canada. But Remo, JD, great CFL talk with Justin Dunk. I mean, Justin and John do such an amazing job at 3 Down Nation. Kind of fun going on around the league. But really, when you think about Labor Day, there will be a lot of focus on Edmonton and Calgary, as much as because of what's going on with the Elks off the field as any. But make no mistake about it, the marquee game in the Canadian Football League this weekend will be at Mosaic Stadium between the Bombers and Riders for first place in the West.
Oh, yes. I'm looking forward to that. And for people who do play in our CFL DraftKings contest, I did make the contest for this week. I'll throw a link in the chat, but if you've already played in one before, go to the Leagues tab on the website. So you might want to get in. I had a good week 1. My other weeks are not been great. But yeah, marquee matchup, Sunday afternoon, 5 Central, another Sunday game, but this is a long weekend. The Bombers and Justin, we looked at the line yesterday. Justin making me feel confident in the Bombers. What are they, plus 3.5? He's questioning, Saskatchewan hasn't really played any defenses that are as tough as the Bombers. I've had a couple, I don't want to say cupcake matchups, but they've played BC and they've played with them. They play Ottawa as well. So not exactly the cream of the crop when it comes to the CFL, but I mean, there's only 8 teams or 9. You can only play who you're scheduled against. I think Bombers and Saskatchewan Argos probably 1, 2, 3 in your power rankings as of now. So, but we know it's going to be a tight game, and possibly signing Roosevelt, getting that intel on the Riders playbook. I don't know. Maybe that's the edge that they need.
Yeah, right now Bombers 2.5-point favorites. That really hasn't moved since
2.5
dropped yesterday, and the over/under still 42.5 for that game. Actually, 42.5 for the Owls Red Blacks, the Bombers Riders, and Elks Stamps game, and 43 for the Argos Ticats. So it seems like these totals have sort of settled a little bit in that low 40s range, which is abnormally low for the CFL, but sort of indicates some of the lower scoring games that we've seen so far this season.
I blame Derek Taylor. He came on this show and he's like, "Oh, it's going to be so high scoring. The defenses are going to be inexperienced. They haven't played." Well, it's the offenses that haven't been able to get it done. I mean, we did see some low scoring games. a lot of flags. I was watching what was a Friday night game with Montreal. It hasn't been, we haven't seen those typical, CFL high scoring games you're used to. And maybe, now you've technically had 4 weeks of preseason. Teams will start getting more accustomed to the way they're playing. Hey, what was Montreal yesterday? And wasn't Montreal? I forget what they're -6 today. I don't think it was that high yesterday.
No, you're right. I think it was like 3.5 or 4.
Yeah, I
and
should have.
Said, you maybe want to get on Montreal right now at that number. And
we were
lo
right.
and behold, it's all been on Montreal at Ottawa. And the state of the Red Blacks offense is just so ugly right now. And I know a lot of big fans of Matt Nichols and Paul Lapalisse in this city. I am certainly one of them. All Nichols did was win for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers for the majority of his time here and was a huge part of the turnaround. But it has been ugly looking at what's happening there. And Dom Davis is the number 2, and Dom Davis isn't the answer either. So I don't know what Lapo's going to do. Their defense has been keeping him in games, but pretty hard to imagine winning in the CFL when you're putting up 10 or less points per game. But let's get to this NFL news. I'll get to the lines in a minute. Cam Newton is out in New England as the starting quarterback of the Patriots, and he didn't just get demoted, he got straight up cut by Bill Belichick today. And Reem, I could not help but think of a conversation we had here on the program, and I believe I had a similar one with Dustin Nielsen on the Lock Shop, on Cam Newton just opening up the door for Mac Jones. Cam Newton, not vaccinated, was in a situation where he was a close contact, had to sit out for 5 days. And what did Mac Jones do? He came in and ran the number 1 offense about as good as anyone had at any point in camp, excelled in the preseason games, earned the starting job. And as we suggested, Cam Newton might get Wally pipped because he's on the bench for a while. And that's exactly what happened. Cam Newton will get a job somewhere else in the NHL, but many people were wondering when that torch would be passed. Well, it's being passed before the season even starts, and Mac Jones is the guy coming out of his incredible career at Alabama, now the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots.
Yeah, did you see Cam Newton posting a message on his Instagram story? Yes, this is classic Cam Newton.
I was just saying, what font did he use, Mike?
I can't even read this. I appreciate all the love and support. How do you even find these icons this time? But I must say, please don't feel sorry for me. # I'm good. 1 finger, 1 pinky, 1 thumb. Love, Cam Newton. So he posted that on his Instagram. And yeah, he had a tough year last year, struggled through injuries, struggled through lack of weapons on their team. Drafted Mac Jones. They're lucky he fell to them. And you called it. He had to miss time for protocols. Mac Jones comes in, lights it up, and makes it easier, makes him more ready to make that switch and cut Cam Newton, and maybe he signs on. Probably will sign on with another team. We'll wait and see how it goes, but I don't think they're going to say it publicly, but I think vaccination status definitely played a role in this, and I think that's going to be, you talk about it with the Elks and with Dunk, and I think that's going to be a story in the NFL all season as we see players have to sit out the time. And baseball is having players sit out all the time. I know some guys in the Red Sox, they're just dealing with an outbreak, but when you play 1 game a week, it's more significant than having to sit out 5 games here and there.
Remember we were joking about, half joking maybe, about getting the weekly injury reports and getting the vaccination reports in the NFL? I was listening to Dan Patrick earlier today, and they were talking about this situation. This is just before Cam was released, but they were talking about the fact that he missed time due to COVID, and then they were talking about Kirk Cousins, who we know isn't vaccinated, and they said that the sharpest gamblers have been identifying quarterbacks that are unvaccinated and hammering the unders on their totals for the season. Assuming that these numbers are based at a number, and normally a lot of people love to bet the overs on players that they like. Hey, he's going to have a great season. We'll bet the over. They're going the other way on unvaccinated quarterbacks on the possibility that, they have to miss practice or potentially games at some point during the season, which would be a huge, huge difference in that number right now. And I don't know whether we'll get those reports, Reem, but it's pretty clear for some of the guys that, haven't decided to go that route their status could be in jeopardy. Almost every week, I think players will be just crossing their fingers that they don't end up on that list and have to sit out.
Yeah, and again, it's going to be a storyline all year, I think, in NFL, the CFL. So we'll wait and see, I mean, what happens around the league. But if you're a player in a key position like quarterback, I mean, we saw this with Cam. Lamar Jackson has been positive. I mean, will he be missing a game? And it will have an impact on gambling. It'll have an impact in fantasy. And I remember like one Sunday morning, like Alvin Kamara was part of a possible outbreak, and I was like freaking out all morning, waiting to see what his status is. So I mean, it happened last year. We're dealing with it again.
Well, hey, what are you hearing about the Saints situation right now? I mean, this hurricane and the aftermath of Hurricane Ida in Louisiana and New Orleans has been significant. I know last night I was digging around just to kind of get some updates, and from what I understand, the entire city of New Orleans was still without power. They may have to make some alternate arrangements for some games. And of course, we remember what happened in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, where they were no beds for an entire season. I don't think that will be the case in right now, but there is the worry from Saints management that they might not be able to play home games as scheduled over the course of at least the next few weeks.
Yeah, here's the latest from Adam Schefter. This was this morning, 10:24. He says, Sean Payton told reporters the team will be away from New Orleans through September as the city recovers from Hurricane Ida. This means the regular season week 1 Packers-Saints not expected to be played. So I think they're looking for alternate home for a month. Could be some college stadium. And I mean, it could be longer, but yeah, they're not going to go back there for a while. And you've seen some of the images and videos, and it is definitely scary. So that's what we have for now. So I think that's something to monitor. So up to a month away.
I'm just trying to think of where they played post Katrina. Didn't they go to San Antonio for the year?
I think it was San Antonio. So I mean, I don't know what they're gonna do, but we'll wait and see. I mean, how it goes. I mean, that's got to be tough. Just personally dealing with all that with your home, and then also professionally. I mean, not being at home all the time, and I wonder if it will have an impact on them. And one other New Orleans note is they're not gonna have Michael Thomas, as he was put on the PUP list, so he'll be missing 6 games. So they need a receiver there.
Oh man, Michael Thomas. I was debating over whether I use him as one of my keepers in my draft tonight, and I don't know. Like when he's there, he can be so good, and I actually think that starting Jameis Winston as the quarterback is going to be great for some of those receivers. But man, it's a heavy price to pay, especially after anyone that had Thomas last year got absolutely burned as he did almost nothing. He's still got issues with the team apparently. If he's in the lineup, I think he and Jameis could do some serious damage. But man, that's a long time to wait when it comes to fantasy football on the roster.
Yeah, here's from Adam Schefter as well. He had off-season foot surgery, landing on the PUP list, physically unable to perform, as BA Split in chat was asking. So yeah, first 6 weeks he's out, and they have an early bye, so 5 games for him. I mean, I tried playing him over and over in daily fantasy last year, hoping for that breakout, that massive target game. But, I mean, Drew Brees, he was on the downside, and Taysom Hill is not a throwing quarterback, so it didn't go well. And then you said he had issues with the team. So, very talented guy, but going to be out now. I guess Callaway, is he the fantasy player who's going to benefit, put him on a rocket ship to the moon, or maybe a bit more cautious with him?
He certainly looked good in the preseason. Yep. I know there was a couple guys waiting until the end of the auction last night to grab him as a $1 baller. So I mean, that'll certainly be a guy to look at. We do have some other hockey notes that we want to get to. Yeah. As I said, let's do these right now. We'll finish with the lines and with the Assiniboia Downs picks. There was a signing today in the National Hockey League, Remis. Connor Murphy goes back to the Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks have had a pretty wild offseason. A number of big changes. Marc-Andre Fleury coming in, the huge trade and contract extension with Seth Jones. So the Murphy deal doesn't quite grab all the headlines, but this is another Central Division team and another guy that'll be an opponent to the Winnipeg Jets, presumably a number of times this year down at the Canada Life Center.
Yeah, 4-year contract, 4.4 salary cap hit. He seems like a top pair or top 2 pair. Sorry, top 4D. More of a defensive defenseman, but I mean, gets the job done. And I don't know if he's going to be playing with Seth Jones. I haven't looked at their depth chart, but Chicago, I don't know if they're off-season champions quality, but they've made a lot of moves this year. The Seth Jones trade, Duncan Keith trade, Marc-Andre Fleury picking him up for nothing. Chicago, they've made a couple. I think there's maybe a couple. I have to refresh my memory here as we approach training camps, but I think they've done an interesting job of trying to get back. I mean, they're trying to get back in the playoffs here.
Yeah, and the investigation continues as well for
of course.
The Blackhawks. The one thing no one's talked about for a little while, but that one ain't going anywhere. We got a happy birthday. 35 candles on the cake for the captain today. Blake Wheeler celebrating a birthday. Big season coming up for Blake Wheeler. There's been a lot of talk about, the captain, his role in the hockey club. Will he still be in the same spot next year? Only Paul Maurice knows. We'll look forward to seeing how that plays out over the course of training camp in the preseason and into the regular season. But we couldn't have the captain celebrate a birthday without wishing him well here on Winnipeg Sports Talk for another year. For many more years, frankly, but especially this upcoming one, considering the expectations and hopes of Winnipeg Jet fans of what this team might be able to do.
Yeah, 35 years old. I remember when he came here, he seemed so much younger. So it was like 10 years ago, and it was the 10th season of the Jets. So he's the captain. And we talked about his year last year. I mean, he had a down season. He was injured. He had that rib injury. They still continue to play him top minutes.
Think about this. Everyone's referring to Wheeler as a down season. The guy had 46 points in 50 games, and they swept the Oilers.
But he did have, even a lot of his points are on the power play. I mean, at 5-on-5, he did not have a good year. I don't think you can.
Too.
Look, I had him in fantasy, so I'm not complaining with the points. I kept playing him in my head-to-head league. However, it was clear that he was hurting, but they continued to play him like overwhelming top minutes, which I think was a bit puzzling. But I'm not doubting that he is a warrior, that he's going to play hard, give it 110 every night, put it all out there, and he plays through everything. But I think he is. He's a big topic on this show. I think he can bounce back for sure. He was obviously hurt, and with all this, with time off to get healthy, I think he will be okay. Now, can he return to the form of a couple of years ago? I'm not sure, but I definitely think he's a plus contributor, and I don't think I think he's better than what he did last year. I will say that.
Yeah, and I think that he was way better later on in the season than he was when he was working through the cracked ribs at the beginning of the season. Yeah. And I'll say this. If people that are writing Blake Wheeler off are nuts, and I would say, and again, we often will bring this back to fantasy and pools or whatever, but I think you're going to be able to buy low on Blake Wheeler going into this season. If people are thinking that, he won't be a big part of the offense or he'll be moving to a significantly different role, I don't think that'll be the case. Now, I'm certainly here for the thought of Nikolai Ehlers playing on the top line, and I'm sure that will be discussed and maybe will be tried at this point. But when you think about Wheeler's importance and particularly his contributions on the power play, and let's not forget, Mitch has brought this up, a number of times before. A lot of the heat that line took, at times certainly was not for anything they weren't doing in the offensive zone. It was on the defensive zone. And I will make the case that of Connor, Scheifele, and Wheeler, Blake Wheeler was the defensive conscience of that line. And, anyways, I'm excited to see what Wheeler's got coming up. I think he's going to be incredibly motivated. First and foremost, the number one job is to win hockey games. And the Jets are poised to do exactly that right out of the gate when they get going in game number 1 out in Anaheim, in a game, ironically, that Mark Scheifele won't be there because, yes, that damn suspension is still in effect. He'll be back in game number 2. So, happy birthday, Blake Wheeler. Looking forward to another great year with number 26 in the Jet lineup. Matt Calvert, one of the all-time greatest guests and greatest interviews we've ever had on Winnipeg Sports Talk, Reem. We discussed he's back in Brandon. He's got some young kids and going to be working with the Wheat Kings as the development coach. What a great signing for Brandon, for a guy that, has such a great story of the way he worked his way to the National Hockey League, starting with the Brandon Wheat Kings, a hometown guy, a former NHLer with a great career. That is an absolutely perfect guy to work with some of these young players who have aspirations of following in the footsteps of a Matt Calvert.
Yeah, he was a great guest on our program, and I emailed him after, said, yeah, we'll have to have you on. He said anytime, and he'll be sticking around Brandon as the development coach there. And he mentioned that he wanted to help, kids coming into hockey, with, I guess it talks in this release about helping them with nutrition, skill development, fitness, mental health, education. So, not just helping them on the ice, but off the ice as well. And again, great guy to talk with, and we wish him all the best in his new role with the Wheat Kings.
Yeah, I think we now have 2 official permanent open invites on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Yeah.
Desiree Scott,
Yeah.
we gave that to her when she showed up with the gold medal, and Des always has a spot on this program if she wants to chat. And Matt Calvert. And honestly, Reem, of everything that we posted, if you're wondering if you missed this and wondered what we were talking about, I believe that one's posted separately, Reem, is it not?
Yeah, if you go on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Winnipeg Sports Talk.
It was
Yeah, I was going to say, or just search for it. Sorry to keep interrupting.
Perfect. Yeah, no, it was honestly one of the best, funniest, most entertaining interviews we've ever had. And we'll certainly look to have Matt back, hopefully on a bit of a regular basis once we get into the season. Hey, one other thing. We talked Jonathan Drouin yesterday with Joey Alfieri, and that was a guy I had not heard much about. Joey gave us some good intel that, he's sort of in the mix. He now tells Pierre Hood that he's ready to play center. So I guess first the good news is that he's ready to play. He'll be back and already ready to get back into the middle. And I'll tell you what, if he could actually go in there and pull his weight, that would be huge for the Montreal Canadiens, considering what they've been through this summer. And of course, the pending decision on the Kotkaniemi offer sheet from the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, he says, here, I'll bring up the tweet here from 91.9 Sports. And the translate, he told him he was ready to play center. And so if they did lose Kotkaniemi, he would probably be a replacement. Or even if they don't lose him, he would be a solid player. Again, not much of a shooter. He's a setup guy. And, he has had success in the past, and you hope that he comes back and he's able to play. So that's a storyline to watch for them heading into training camp. And this week is a big week as it's Bergevin watch in Montreal, waiting to see if he chooses to match or take the 2 draft picks for the following the Kotkaniemi offer sheet.
No word on that right now. And as Remis mentioned earlier, another big news today in the NHL. The Stars are changing their jerseys to Victory Green, I believe it is.
Let me pull it up here. Yeah,
what is Victory Green? Show us what it looks like.
Okay, I'll show you. This is sportslogos.net. Thank them. They follow all the stuff. So sorry for everyone on the podcast, but they've brightened their green. And so this is what it used to be. This is like dark green. And this is what it is. Where is it now? Oh, this is what it used to be, and this is what it is now. So it's like, you can almost not, it's like a little bit brighter. It's not a huge difference. And so you can see there and there.
Definitely worthy of a press release in late August right now as you're trying to get people ready to go. I do like this, the history of green.
This is the best.
From the North Stars through the years.
This is the best part. Yeah, sportslogos.net giving us the history of Stars green. I personally like the 99 Cup final Stars uniforms. This redesign is more of a classic look. I'm okay with it, but the 94 to 2013 logo to me is the best one.
They certainly had their most success in it. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yes, they definitely had. And there is other jersey news. Minnesota Wild teasing a jersey release. So I guess their Stadium Series jersey, here it is. There.
Oh, okay.
This is what we got. What does this mean, Huss? It's for those on the podcast, it's we were seeing a red, tan, green stripe with I don't know if that's another
cream
shade
color?
Of tan. Cream, yeah, cream and a tan. So we'll wait and see, but August 31, yeah, it's Jersey Watch news and what players are posting on Instagram Day.
Wild, if there is ever a team that would be great for a beige uniform, It's the Minnesota Wild. So even with Kirill Kaprizov.
I always love, we would, on the old station, we would get tweets, and I forget what day, like in the middle of summer, and we'd be talking about whatever. People would be like, slow news day, huh? And I'd be like, yeah, it's the middle of summer. There's like nothing going on in terms of sports. So, like, thank you. So I'm here for jersey uniform watch. I'm here for it.
Well, I am too. We always here for that. Maybe we'll get Paul Lucas on sometime to talk about some of the new unis this year. But there actually is something going on tonight, and it is a gold medal game between Canada and the USA. And it doesn't matter if that is on the 31st of August or any other day on the calendar. That's big news. Let's get to our Coolbet daily lines to see how things are looking. By the way, Finland right now up 1-0 on the Swiss in the bronze medal match. But tonight, 6:30, it's USA at Canada. And Canada is the favorite right now at -125, USA +100, or even money to win. And this is obviously a reaction to Canada's incredible performance in the earlier round robin or preliminary matchup between these two clubs, where Canada was up 5-0 and cruised to victory in the third period. I'll say one thing. I don't know who's going to win this game tonight, Remo, but I sure as hell don't expect another blowout like we saw in the earlier game this tournament.
No, I don't think so, just based on history. I think that was an anomaly. That was round robin game. This is the gold medal. You know it's going to be tight with these two teams. Over under 4.5. Seems a bit low considering. I don't know, maybe you want to go for the over. We see, a 3-2 game or something. I'm kind of surprised at how low that is, Huss.
Actually, I'm sort of with you. That might be a fun bet to get on. So anyways, you can get to Coolbet. If you want to sprinkle on tonight's game, you can use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. Might be great considering that NFL is about to start coming up next week. But Remo, no, I'm not sure where you find this on the site. But I will tell people, if you go to Coolbet Canada on Twitter, you can find a very interesting prop bet that they put together. And this is it, is what are the odds a city can win the Grey Cup and have their hockey team make the playoffs? We'll tell you. Now, unfortunately for the Stampeders, or the Rough Riders, there's no NHL team in Saskatchewan, so they're not on the board. And interestingly, they used the Leafs with the Argos, I guess because they're in the same city. Although it would have been nice maybe to see a Ticats line in there. But Leafs and Argos is +750. Jets and Blue Bombers +850. I don't know how in the world, unless you think that the Argos, and I'm looking at the CFL futures, the Argos are +650, the Bombers are 4-1. So essentially what this number says, that the Leafs are way more likely to make the playoffs for the Jets than the Jets. I don't know if I'm buying that. But the Bombers right now are +400 to win the Grey Cup. If you like that and you think that the Jets will make the playoffs, you can get a +850 prop right now at Coolbet Canada. If you go to my Twitter feed at Hustlerama, I retweeted it out. But these numbers, Leafs Argos 750, Jets Bombers +850, Oilers Elks +1400, Flames Stamps +2300. Same thing with the Canucks and Lions. Habs Alouettes +3300. And, this would involve the Red Blacks winning the Grey Cup. So I think you know where we're going with this one. 190-1 for the Red Blacks to win the Grey Cup and the Sens. But Remo, what do you think about the Bombers? I mean, I think we're all pretty high. We know the Bombers will have a good chance to win the Grey Cup. I'm very high on the Jets being a playoff team. So at more than twice what the number is for the Bombers to win the Grey Cup is at, I think I'm getting in on that.
Seems like it makes sense. So we've had a couple, futures bets. Some saw people in our mentions on Twitter. We said the Jets to win the Cup at 50-1 on Coolbet. Seemed like, just a fun bet to make. And this one for the Bombers to win the Grey Cup, and then the Jets make the playoffs, which we think is expected. I don't want to say a lock, but that's the expectation right now. So, sure, plus 850.
Big disappointment if the Jets aren't in the playoffs next year. That's for sure.
Especially after the moves that they made in the offseason signals. They're playoff ready. They made it the last year, although it was the Canadian division. Now they'll have the regular. division. So yeah, I like this bet if you want to have like fun. I don't know how much you put on it. Like, want to put like $20 on it or something for some fun? Sure, why not?
Yeah, and as we mentioned, the Jets are, speaking of maybe throwing a fun 20 down, Jets still 50-1 to win the cup at Coolbet. I haven't seen anything higher than 40 at any other book right now. So if you're someone that, likes to make a season bet, hoping for the Holy Grail, you'll get your best number over at Coolbet. Don't forget, use the promo code WST. Remo, I was 0 for last night. A couple very close calls at the track. What about you?
Yes, I don't think I had any close calls. I think I was terrible, and I was watching it and was just very not in a good mood watching it on YouTube. So I'm trying to recover. I've got a different strategy tonight, but yeah, my picks started off the year really hot, and now I'm ending it extremely cold. But there's still time to make it up. So.
Well, there certainly is. It'll be a great night. It's really nice. These next couple days, I think we're finally getting a little warmer, 25, 26, so it should be a great night out at the track. Remo, why don't you begin with your selections for tonight at Assiniboia Downs? And I will mention, don't forget, coming up on Labor Day, which is the 5th, the Manitoba Night Market is happening over at Assiniboia Downs from 1 to 11 p.m. Local artisans and producers, live bands and musicians, food trucks, beer gardens. Tickets are $7. 5 and under are free. You can find out more information on that over at asdowns.com. All right, what do you got?
Hold on a second. Let me just respond to Tico and Apolli. Hold on. So I got a tractor box, and let me pull this. Sorry, I'm trying to respond to the chat and do this. Race 4, 238 tractor box. Fly through traffic, critical condition, and I'll be your handyman. I got that one. And I'm doing another tractor box in race 5. It is a 357 Harry Keep the Change, Red Esther, and Stone Cafe. And then I did not bet on Big Buffy. He's 12-1. I was tempted. I know the chat wants me to go for Big Buffy, but I did not. And the last one, race 6, I'm doing a Quinella 6-4. Tough enough to start and kick a little booty. So those are I'm doing 3 bets, 2 tractor boxes at $6. So, and then one $8 Quinella. So let's go.
Okay, so that is race 3. All right. Okay, so I'm going with race number 1. We're going with number 4 to win, and that is Witt's Girl. I love my Wits horses. Finished 4th last time, but did win its previous race. In race number 2, we are going with a 135 triactor box. So that is Sharp Contrast, Wits Question, and Button Mushroom. I'm going to get that in as well. Race number 3, we're going a 2-3 Quinella. And we're also going to put those 2, and this is going to be a little bit of a different tractor box, but I'm going to have 2-3-3-2, and then we're going to put those with number 6, Western Mongolia, as well as Chickle Sparks, number 7, to win. So a little bit different than I've done before, but we'll get all those in. Might add one more to make sure I'm up to my $20 wager for tonight, but do it all, and you can bet with us over at hpibet.com. But don't forget, there's nothing better than doing it in person over at Assiniboia Downs. Live racing. VLT's open till 12:15, and you can make reservations in the Terrace Dining Room.
Yeah, shout out to Todd Fertani in chat. He says, don't bet on Big Buffy. He may not show up for the race.
Nicely done, Todd. Yeah. Nicely done. All right, before we go, do we want, PGA news. This is so soft, but all the people that were yelling Brooksy at Bryson DeChambeau, that's now going to get you kicked out of PGA Tour events. I think they need to be going the other way. The guys are yelling during swings and stuff like that. Absolutely. That is uncalled for, but I mean, there you see, James Hahn, it's official. Calling Bryson anything but his real name will get you thrown out of tournaments. So if any of one of you call me Kevin Nod, Danny Lee, or Sang Moon Bay, we're going to have some problems. Epic tweet by James Hahn, who's one of the other Asian players on the PGA Tour. But I don't know what you think about this, Reem. That is... I mean, the DeChambeau drama never ends. I'm still on cloud 9 from winning that Pat Cantlay 27-1 bet, and the way that it happened with Bryson missing all of those putts and then Cantlay breaking his heart with the 20-footer on the 6th playoff hole.
Can you still yell Baba Booey after a swing and like mashed potatoes? Can you still do that? As long as you can do that.
My girl Paige Sporadic tweeted out today, where was this energy for the mashed potatoes guys? Because that's a hell of a lot more annoying to everybody involved than calling Bryson Brooksy. Interesting. I guarantee you that Brooks Koepka won't be bitching to PGA Tour officials to have people kicked out if they call him Bryson. I will just guarantee you on that.
Yeah. I said it reminded me of used to get thrown out of Guns N' Roses concerts for wearing a top hat back when it was just Axl and his friends. So this is kind of like the same thing. That's how I feel.
Do you want to show Wes McCauley's wedding suit?
Oh, yeah. Here, let me throw this up real quick.
Wes McCauley, the most flamboyant and flashy ref in the game. 5 minutes for fighting. That guy. Well, he showed up and was flaunting some pretty nice custom threads at a wedding on the weekend. This is a Winnipeg Sports Talk fashion segment. Don't have a sponsor, but look at that. The stripes on the inside of the jacket, the referee stripes, the NHL logo. Wes McCauley, you just got 5 minutes for having too much drip, my friend. Quite a suit by the NHL official.
Yeah, is that like from an actual jersey, or did someone like sew that pattern? And I don't know if he's got his arms around a bride. I have no idea whose wedding this is, if it's his or someone else's, but yes, he's looking pretty good, and he's really like the one ref these days that as a fan, you're familiar with. I know there's a lot of them out there. We all know Saint Laurent here in Winnipeg.
Yeah,
that's the one that we all know.
Francois Saint Laurent, but Paul Maurice's arch rival.
But in terms of having a signature call, or look, here's Wes McCauley, I'd say he's probably number 1 on the official power rankings.
Well, he certainly is. And okay, we got to get out. We got to get these pods up. But one final story today. We were talking about McDonald's teasing what you've been waiting for will be revealed on August 31st. And everyone was talking about McPizza. And then I said I would be more than fine with just an announcement that the McRib was back. You teased this yesterday. Spicy chicken McNuggets. Are you kidding? What a disappointment, Remis. Nobody was asking for that. Guaranteed. Absolutely nobody.
They're getting so roasted on social media. I believe this tweet got ratioed really hard. Spicy McNuggets dropped today. React in the comments, gifts only. I'll go first. And like every comment is like whatever Chris D saying pizza. We like pizza. And it's like it's all people asking for pizza, all people being disappointed. And I don't know if like McDonald's, like they're so massive, like I don't know if they can, this is like really a big L in terms of social media, but I think you're hyping people up saying this is what you are asking for, and no one's asking for McDonald's spicy nuggets. Don't get me wrong, I think I would try them. I think I'm like, yeah, that's interesting, but framing the tweet, you're all waiting for this and we're going to give it to you. This is not it, and they are deservingly getting roasted, and I don't know who's in charge of the social media campaign. I mean, it got them attention. I think that's good, but I don't think it's positive attention. But they say any publicity is good publicity, right?
Yeah, some do. I'll tell you this. I was more excited about the release of the BTS meal, which was simply a 10-piece McNugget meal with one of 2 new sauces. I think there was a Cajun and a sweet chili or something earlier, and I've never listened to BTS, and I actually didn't ever order it. But I was more excited about that than I was of the spicy McNuggets. So, anyways, I'm going to be getting my chicken at DQ anyways, so I don't need that. I might get into a Big Mac, although the Grand Big Mac's gone. I would have been fine with saying, guess what? The Grand Big Mac is staying. That would have been way better than this announcement today. So anyways, first world problems. I'll be getting a daily burger today. I know someone will come in, chop local. Well, I'll be doing that. Great combo, Corden Avenue. Great burger, great burger. All right, folks, great stuff today. Big thanks to Munzy. Great to catch up with Brian Munz. If you popped in late, we talked to Munzy earlier about everything going on with the Winnipeg Ice as they kick off their training camp tomorrow. And we also got his thoughts on the Jets offseason and a great CFL conversation with Justin Dunk of 3 Down Nation. Don't forget tonight, 6:30, it's Canada versus the USA for gold. We'll break that down tomorrow. We'll also have some more NFL news and notes as rosters are being finalized for next week's NFL kickoff. We are now officially 9 days away from game 1 of the season. Bucks Cowboys next Thursday, and then the full weekend of NFL action, a massive Sunday, Monday as well. And by the way, Lock Shop tomorrow. If you're not already subscribed, make sure you do that. You can check it out. We'll also be broadcasting it on Twitter on Dustin Nielsen's account tomorrow around 11:45 before the event. But we are going to be announcing something for next weekend heading into the Banjo Bowl. We'll make sure you are all invited. That's going to do it for us, folks. Thanks again to Not Autocorp, Boston Pizza, Assiniboia Downs, Canadian Club Whiskey, Royal Sports, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Little Brown Jug, Breezy Bend, and Coolbet Canada. We are back with you tomorrow at 1 o'clock here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Thanks for making us a part of your day. We'll see you tomorrow and have a great night.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.